Obama 2009, Trump 2017, Biden 2021. With the president-elect set to take his oath on the same steps that were overrun by insurrectionists 2 weeks ago, authorities are taking no chances. The heart of Washington has been turned into an exclusion zone, protected by barricades, armed checkpoints, and an up to 25,000-strong National Guard contingent.
They will take up positions around the White House, the Capitol building, the Supreme Court, more troops than in Iraq and Afghanistan combined.
Surrounding city blocks have been closed to traffic, with trains bypassing all nearby metro stations as well.
There are these rings of security. If we have a violent conflict, it's going to be in that outer perimeter.
But while Washington is probably the most fortified city on earth right now, the threat extends far beyond the nation's capital.
Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Michigan, those are particular areas of concern because of past events.
All people who want to commit violent acts tend to look for soft targets. And I think, ideally, that's going to be a state capital.
At some state houses, ragtag groups of armed protesters are already attempting to stir things up.
We were coming out here for unity, trying to get Antifa, Proud Boys, BLM, the militias all together just to have a conversation.
As gun sales across the country skyrocket, security experts are looking for signs of potential violence online.
One of the real challenges in this space is trying to distinguish what's aspirational versus what's intentional.
I would be more concerned about what you don't see in terms of the idea of serious militant type rather than a large crowd.
Even if power is transferred peacefully on the 20th, it's clear the anger that Donald Trump so successfully weaponised will outlast his presidency. It could prove a bloody legacy.
We clearly have a very passionate minority. They have a lot of guns. They live mostly in rural areas. Law enforcement there may be sympathetic to their views and so isn't inclined to put a spotlight on them or highlight that they're there. This could be a long-term problem.
Steve Clemens is watching this all unfold from Washington and he joins us now. Steve, have you ever seen Washington like this?
Never, ever, ever seen Washington like this, not during protests against the World Trade Organization. I have seen the green zone in Baghdad, Iraq, when I was there many years ago, and it sort of looks like that right now. Lots of military vehicles, lots of folks with guns.
Steve, what's the worst case scenario here? What do you think the intelligence agency's biggest fear is?
Honestly, I think their biggest fear right now is that within their ranks somewhere, either in a Capitol Police or, within the National Guard units or military, there's someone that's been radicalized and who might do something to attack the president or vice president or others in this, because we saw real threats against Nancy Pelosi, against Vice President Mike Pence, that they were on kind of a hunt and kill mission. Allegedly in some of these, in the cases from January 6th. They say that they have vetted these guards, that they vetted all of them. And the mere fact that they are vetting every soldier out of 25,000 have been deployed in Washington tells me they're worried about that.
That's absolutely chilling to hear, Steve. If the risk is so great, is there a case to be made that maybe not to have the inauguration or to have it indoors, have it a more private ceremony?
Well, I think that case was made to President-elect Biden, and he said, I'm going to get inaugurated on the same part of the West Lawn that every other president swears an oath on the Bible and is sworn into office. And I think that his desire to do that is what is driving this right now. That's why they're not indoors. There's going to be nobody there. I mean, right now, D.C. is a ghost town. It's remarkable. But they are worried still about crazy people with guns coming to Washington with the purpose of killing someone.
And crazy people with guns aren't going anywhere, Steve. Like, it's not like this happens on January 20, Biden gets elected and, sworn in and they go away. Like, how big is the fear that going forward, of any kind of, a danger or attempt on President Biden's life or Vice President Harris?
I think it's huge. And we're talking about Washington, D.C. right now. Go to Lansing, Michigan. Go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, go to some of these other battleground states where you had fights and questions about those states' electors. And those places are tense. The downtown areas are boarded up. Police are deployed more heavily. And you're right, January 20th is a punctuation point. It's a day. What about January 23rd, January 27th, February 15th, those days where they let the guard down? So I think you're absolutely right. I think that from a security perspective, the Secret Service, with regard to then President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are going to have to be deployed very heavily for a while until, they get a sense that this QAnon conspiracy has disappeared. The one thing I'll say is Donald Trump is not out there blaring and blasting right now because his megaphone has been unplugged. He's not on Twitter.
Steve, as an American, how sad are you when you reflect on what we're going to see this week and compare it back to, say, the inauguration of Barack Obama first time around, Aretha Franklin standing up there singing Respect and that massive crowd in the mall.
You were there, weren't you, Pricey?
I was in New York, in Harlem on that day, and it was brought a tear to everyone's eyes. Steve, you must be very sad.
No, I mean, I am very sad. I was at that inauguration. I was there when Barack Obama was sworn in. I was there right up near the front rows, and it was a staggering moment in American history. First person of color elected president of the United States, and it had such a joyous feel. And believe me, out in that audience, we had Republicans and Democrats. You had people, not only in the audience, but also members of Congress that got it, that Barack Obama won that election. He came in, and there was none of this deep fear of each other. But yeah, it is very, very sad to see a day when our president and vice president and both parties of Congress can punctuate this moment with respect and dignity, and that is not happening.
Certainly some tense days ahead, Steve. We appreciate your time. Thanks as always.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, you see that the Pentagon has cancelled this 21-gun salute that Donald Trump wanted to have as he left Andrews Air Force Base. But you can't believe, can any of us, that there's not going to be one final Donald Trump moment in Washington before this all wraps up?
What do you mean? Like, what would you anticipate?
Who would know with Donald Trump what he might or might not do? But I can't imagine he's just going to slink out of the White House and disappear off to Florida and start playing golf again.
I think possibly maybe the message has gotten through. I know it's a big thing to say. They've gotten through to him. What we've seen in the Capitol, in a sense, is like it's never been seen before. Like even for Trump, he must be saying, and he put a message, I think, on the White House.
Apparently he did.
But nobody says it.
No one's listening to it.
Maybe Twitter could just tweet that on his account.
No, because it'll be called a fake or something.
So,
and then,
Waleed, was Steve right there when you were at that inauguration in Washington, I know? Was there a joyous feeling? I mean, there certainly was in Harlem.
Well, the thing to remember is it wasn't just the inauguration. The day before, there was this enormous concert. U2 played, Beyonce, Stevie Wonder. And what I remember was there's security. Of course, there's security. But it was like 1 million, 2 million people. However, it wasn't that heavy. I just sort of walked through. If you compare that to what it was like seeing in a church service. That's what it felt like. It sort of had that, like an African American church.
Yeah, gospel
it had that sort of feel about it. This obviously feels very, very different. Yeah.
Very different. And this DC resident was asked about the big day, and her response was refreshingly honest.
How do you plan to spend your inauguration days?
At home, drinking heavily. Hopefully nothing will happen of the negative caliber, but we'll be drinking.
And the vodka bottles could be easily turned into Molotov cocktails. So a little, little right hack there.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. We're off to a break. We'll see you soon. From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.